Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter, and I am a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. And Coffee with a Codex is our weekly show and tell program. We bring a manuscript off the shelf and show it to you and talk about it a little bit. And today I am just thrilled to pieces to be joined by Julia Pelosi-Thorpe. Julia is a PhD candidate in Italian and comparative literature. And she spent the last year with us working on a Sims graduate student fellowship focused on this manuscript. So we had just purchased this manuscript. It hadn't been cataloged yet. She worked with Amy Hutchins to do the cataloging work. She followed the book as it went down to SETI, which is our digitization lab, and she experienced that part of the process. You made a collation model, so she looked at the structure of the book and made a model of it, which will eventually be attached to the catalog record. You did videos, you did workshops. You know this manuscript really well. Yes. So we are going to have a look now. So thanks for being here with me.
Do you want to having me?
You're very welcome. Do you want to do the honors?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
It is such an honor. I feel like a fangirl right now.
Well, I'm a fangirl too. I'm your fangirl. All right.
So maybe I should preface that one of the reasons I chose this manuscript, as well for the purposes of my project, as well as it being a new acquisition that had not yet been catalogued, so I could learn about the digitization and the cataloging, was that it was really tiny. So you can see here that it's incredibly small.
It's very big. It's like as big as my finger.
Yeah.
Woo, I love it.
And it also has been tampered with a lot over the years by one person or multiple people. So I guess my fellowship a lot of the work that I was doing was thinking about the ways that books have sort of like a deep time, especially manuscripts and older books, and across the years people have really interacted with the books in different ways, and so this is a great lens to think about that, because it's had lots of different interactions. So we were discussing how the binding is later, but we're not exactly sure from which period.
Right. So we should say the manuscript was written around, it was after 1450,
yes,
right?
Because the calendar has Saint Bernardino, who was canonized in 1450.
Right.
So it has to have been produced after that point. Right. And we think that it was from northern Italy. That was sort of said by the bookseller that Penn bought it from. And it makes sense because Saint Bernardino was from Siena, which is in the sort of center north of Italy.
Right.
I'm not sure if Amy, who I did the cataloging with, remembers other details that sort of placed it in the north.
She shook her head. She said no.
Okay.
All right. So back to the binding. It's a later binding.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And same with the sort of gilt edges.
Which points to a later rebinding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the marbled paper that's been put on most of the paste downs.
Yeah, the paste downs on the front and the back have this marble paper, which is not medieval, again.
Yeah. And the end leaves are paper as well, rather than parchment. And there's a mysterious name in one of them. So there's an inserted folium which has, we think, a 19th century hand that says, can we see it?
Yeah.
P. Pacifico Luini da Milano, so from Milan. Both Amy and I did a lot of Googling, and we could not find anybody to match this name. Although there is a contemporary author who has this name, like a double barrel surname with both in it. And I actually tried to trace the provenance of this book. I emailed Sotheby's, who had sold it in the 90s, to try and ask who they bought it from or if they had any records, and they responded saying that everyone who worked there at the time is gone now and they don't know anything.
That's crazy.
It has a very mysterious history. And
so what's happening on the front of that page?
Great.
Not that page.
Here,
this one there. Yeah.
So this is quite interesting, I think, because there's sort of been
here, why don't you sort of set it?
Maybe I'll set it down. Thank you.
And then I can zoom in and.
So one of the Psalms has been half written out here, and they've even sort of done the next initial but not continued. And I looked up the text earlier, and I think it is Psalm number 114.
Psalm 114.
I can't find where my note is for that, but that's what I think I remember it being. So it's fascinating that this is the same folio that has the inscription on it after the paper. I think, both of these are paper, and then the parchment begins here. And it's in the same 19th century replacement hand that has done other replacements. So the 13th.
There we go.
So here we go. Here's another example where we have the, I guess, original hand on the left on the verso, and then the recto of the next leaf is a replacement and has the hand that's there for the replacements. And then it returns to, it continues because obviously it's the same leaf, and then it returns to the other hand.
Yep. And why do you think that page was replaced?
Here we come to the most. This is really helpful for my train of thought because I'm so scattered. So something that we were immediately devastated by about this book is that it's had all of the miniatures removed and the leaves replaced with the text that was missing, but obviously not the illustration that has been taken.
Right. So originally there would have been this is the opening of the Hours of the Virgin here.
Yes,
so there would have been probably some kind of Mary and Jesus.
Yes.
Colorful, probably beautiful illustration.
Yeah. Before in this time last year, I was in Italy looking at Italian books of hours because I was preparing for this project. And I deliberately found as many as I could get my hands on, and I was looking at them in the reading room, and they all had their illuminations, and they were so gorgeous. So I feel like I had a really good sense of what I was missing when I came to this one. I'm not an expert in books of hours or anything like that. I chose this book for the project for sort of mercenary reasons and other points of interest. And I've really grown to love books of hours, and that was a great experience. But sadly, I think there would have been 9 illuminations that have been taken out of the book.
Yeah.
And we are left with 0. But we do have some beautiful decorated initials. And there are, actually maybe 9 is the number of the decorated initials that there are in the book. I actually think there are less miniatures that have been taken out. I think I got the numbers confused in my head.
There's
one. Here we
one.
have one. I'm not sure if the camera, I don't want to lose the focus.
Yeah, I think it's hard because the camera wants to focus on.
Yeah, it's hard because I don't want to pull the binding.
Yeah, but I think you can see.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, it's a little bit tight.
Well.
So there's an illuminated initial that is still there.
There's also one on 116 recto.
Here, why don't you?
We can maybe
It's a
even
small.
go through
It's
and
a
show
small
them.
book to have two hands on it. Here, why don't you?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's another, and that probably gives a sense too of how the missing, what the missing illuminations would look like. The miniatures, the sort of style of them. So not the other books of hours that we've looked at in Coffee with a Codex. Our other manuscripts they're like French books of hours, so they're a little bit different in style.
Yeah, and Italian books of hours were less standardized than those that were produced above the Alps in terms of the texts that were included and the features that you find. I'm trying to find another of the decorated. Oh, here we go. Francesca Manzari
I just
I
think they're
love
so
that
pretty
too.
with the little sort of feathery.
Yeah, it's so
Um,
delicate.
It's
and
very
so tiny.
delicate. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trying to get the gold leaf to glint, but maybe that's not going to happen right now.
Yeah. Sorry,
Um,
I kind of interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just saying that Francesca Manzari, who's one of the leading scholars of Italian books of hours, argues for like reclassifying the definition when it comes to Italy and the ones that were
Oh.
produced in Italy because they have different features and they weren't as standard.
Right.
And yeah, I was telling you earlier, she was saying that there are much less.
So why don't you keep it open so
Good idea.
folks
I
can
was
see
trying
it.
to find another of them. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's on 53. Thanks, Dot.
Sure.
Okay,
There you
I'll keep
go.
it open on
That's
this page.
yeah. While you talk.
She was saying about 20% of the extant books of hours, so the ones we have today, are Italian, and so that's not very much.
Mhm. And then a lot of them are going to be French because there are a lot of surviving French books of hours from France. And why don't you sort of page through and we can talk about what books of hours are. I think probably a lot of people here know, but just in case, books of hours were sort of really a very popular genre of personal prayer book in the sort of starting, I guess, in the 1300s and then into even up to the like 1600. And they were based on the monastic hours. So if you were in a monastery, you would say, different sets of prayers every day. And so books of hours were sort of a way for lay people, that is, people who were not monks and nuns, to follow the same kind of program. And the central part of that is the Hours of the Virgin, which is the first text that is in this manuscript.
Oh, the calendar is the first.
Well, the calendar is the first text, and then the first prayer text in this one is the Hours of the Virgin.
Okay.
And
just because I was physically on the calendar.
Yeah, you're physically on the calendar. So the calendar is Roger Wick, who is who is at the Morgan Library and is the person in the world who maybe knows most about books of hours, generally, at least French books of hours, has described the calendar as a map of the church year. And it's basically every line in there, so every 2 pages in this one is a month. And then what we have is saints that you venerate on the different days. So you've got the saints' days and also holidays. So it was a way for you, to sort of see, what day is it? Who should I be praying to today? And then the Hours of the Virgin is in the way that the canonical hours that you would do if you were living in a monastery. It's like when you get up in the morning, here are the prayers that you do, and at different times of the day. And then there's other prayers that we'll get to when we get further along. But that's what a book of hours was, and they were very popular, and lots of them survive, either whole or in pieces. And some of them were really beautifully decorated, and some of them weren't, and some of them were beautifully decorated, and then the leaves got cut out because later people thought they were nice little art objects.
Yeah.
So, but even though the miniatures aren't there, I love these, the initials and the drawings and that.
The detail is so intricate. The book is so tiny, and everything is
so tiny
and small.
Yeah. Karen is asking, what is the script used? Do you know what
I think Gothic Rotunda.
Gothic
but I can
Rotunda.
check. Oh,
I think
Amy's nodding, so I'm taking that.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, Gothic Rotunda. Oh, and then Amy has put the link in. Oh, and I missed this.
Thank you, Amy.
Megan, going back to the book binding, Megan says it looks like a classic late 1800s book binding.
Okay.
Yeah, which is sort of what we figured. But it is really worn, so it looks like either it wasn't done very well, which is possible, or it was actually used quite a bit.
Or even maybe because it's so small, it could easily be put in someone's pocket, like
and just
rubbing
rubbed.
on the...
Yeah.
There's also, maybe we'll skip to an exciting part
Go
at
ahead
the
and
back
skip,
and then come back and go through.
Yeah.
And so at the
it's
back,
it's too long. We're not going to get to look at every single page
Yeah.
anyway. So
okay.
Yeah.
So at the back, there's an inscription in what seems like
Here,
a
can you-
19th century. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
there you go.
I need to look at.
Yeah,
the
you need to look
actual-
at that.
I'm just looking at the
Let's make
manuscript.
sure.
19th century hand that has copied out prayers in Latin for the Eucharist, and then given little instructions in Italian. So the title's in Italian, Orazione Gesù Cristo, which actually has a little typo because the I is, or they've just not put the R in the word. And then copied it out in Latin, and then have little Italian instructions. So the first one comes here on the right, levando il sacerdote l'ostiummente l'adorerai così. So when the priest is like raising up the host, like the wafer, this is how you'll like adore it. Like basically this is what you say. And then after that, on the verso we have quando si leva il calice l'adorerei così. So this is for when the cup of wine gets lifted to the congregation. And then we have the prayer, and then amen, and then finis. So
And that's the end.
that is a little interesting addition to the text, which I like, that there's a multitude of different mediations. There's like leaves that have been taken out and leaves that have been put in, blank leaves put in, and the writing.
Why don't we show a blank leaf? Because we were talking
Let's
about
do-
this
yeah.
earlier, that clearly they took them out, and then some of them they replaced completely, like the first one we looked at was replaced
Yeah.
completely with text, and then others weren't.
Yes. So the first instance of this comes here, where we have.
Watch this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually need to refer to the list because I actually am forgetting.
Do you want me to hold that, or are you got it?
Oh no, I think I have it. Okay. So this is a litany here, and which is in the section that has the penitential psalms and litanies after the Hours of the Virgin that we were looking at earlier. It's one of the later texts that were often included. And here the litany just breaks off in the middle. So they've sort of ruled the blank. They've taken a leaf out and put a new leaf in and ruled it, but not written anything. And where there would have been the miniature on the other side, they have sort of like left. We were talking about how eerie it is to see the blank space where they sort of didn't even put the title at the top, or they could have done a variety of different approaches, but they've left it, and then they've copied the title of the offices for the dead, which is the next text included, and there's another missing leaf too, where they've begun to write that out, and then the original picks up again.
So that's actually two leaves in a row.
And is two in a row, which is
Yeah.
the only instance I think in the book where there's two replaced ones in a row.
Can you go? I want to go back and look at that leaf again. Turn
this one?
the page, because we were noticing as we were talking that whoever wrote this in the later
Oh yeah.
you can see the way that they're using the ruling is unexpected. And as soon as I saw it, because instead of writing on the line, they've written it so the line is like on top of it's like a guide to the top of the small letters.
Yeah.
The lowercase letters.
Yeah.
And they're not writing on a line at all, which is very interesting.
Definitely.
I don't know what.
You can see it to great
know.
effect at the next time there's a replaced leaf. Oh no, I lost the one that we were looking at a different one that was basically a full page of text that had all been well, okay.
But that's a missing leaf that's just blank. Totally blank.
So
is it ruled? I don't know. It's ruled.
Yeah,
it's lightly ruled.
Yeah. So here they've let the text finish, but where the next begins,
it's just they didn't include it at all.
Let me remind myself. I think it was.
Are you thinking of the other one here? Why don't I
write it down on the.
Here, I'm just gonna, you move your hand. I'm gonna page through a little bit so we can just
That would be
see a
great.
little bit more.
I was just trying to think what has gone there.
So.
Oh yeah,
and-
it's
we already looked
it's
at
the
that
beginning
one.
of the hours of the cross, the matins that is missing there.
What is the, do you
where
have
we
a-
were before?
Oh, we already looked at it.
Oh, in the page that we looked at, that just had the blank replacement. They
Mhm.
had not copied out the beginning of the hours of the cross, which was
Oh,
where
I've
the
got it.
miniature was taken.
Right.
But now we are in, where are we now? We're in the offices for the dead.
I think we're not because I moved it around again.
Oh no, I was
Where
looking.
is
I was looking to where you are now.
where we are now.
we are.
So this
But
is the office
before-
of the dead.
Yeah, before though we were at the hours of the cross.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was another one where they removed.
Yeah, they removed the beginning of the hours of the cross and did not copy it back out. And
Yeah.
they removed the end of one of the litanies and did not copy it back out.
Yeah. So there was a question that we had as we were talking before, and that was the process for replacing these leaves, because there's a part of me that says it would make sense to write the leaves out first and then bind them in. But it looks like it's impossible really to tell how it was done. But it seems like they were bound in and then written on, because some of them are finished and some of them aren't, and some of them are
Yeah.
barely started. And it seems
That's
like,
where the reasoning comes from.
yeah, and it seems like the ones that are finished are towards the beginning of the book, and the ones that are unfinished are towards the end. Or is that just what I've seen?
No,
Is that
I would
not
agree
correct?
with you. I would agree
Okay.
with you. Yeah.
All right. So there's this, it was like they just decided that wasn't what they wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like the prayers with the Eucharist totally copied out at the end,
the
but
end.
but not have the missing text copied out. Although it's a different hand, I guess.
Right. So do you think that the prayers are written at the end later?
I don't know. I mean,
It's hard
to
to
me,
tell.
I feel like they're both from the same century, but I'm not even exactly. I like to think that it's the same person, like doing a different hand in order to make the replacement look more official.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really
Like
not
they're
sure.
trying to imitate
Yeah.
this hand.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean that's just a fancy I have in my head.
Yeah.
I do
So-
not have evidence.
That's okay. So there's a question from Claire. She's asking, do the replacements seem fully bound into the structure?
I think from memories of when we were doing the collation, yes.
I think
Maybe
some of
Amy
them-
can remember. There was
Yeah.
one where there was a missing miniature that had been cut. I think it was the
Here,
one
you
you
want
could actually.
Okay.
I think it was at 149. You could see that. You could actually see the beginning of what had been cut out, but I mean that's not really answering the question. I felt like they had been. What do you think?
I felt like there was an example where there was a stub.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm finding, the stub example.
So a stub can appear in there's two ways you could have a stub. One is if you
It's
cut a leaf out.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let's see if we can.
You can
Can you sort of see it in the middle? What we're looking at is there's a little piece of parchment there in the middle, and what that means is either that there was a leaf there that was cut out and there's a small remnant of it still in the gutter, but it can also mean that there is a leaf that was bound into the structure and a little piece of that added leaf is kind of peeking through. And it could be either one of those. I can't remember.
That's so interesting.
I don't know if that's because there's a leaf missing or if it's because there's one that's
There's
added.
like you can sort of see the edges of the gold and decoration
Oh.
on the stub, so it really does look
So
like
that's
a
one that's
miniature.
been cut. Yes. Claire says the wide margin would help the process. I think the process of sort of tucking it in, and I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's this is a good example of like the two. Yeah, so this is a leaf that's been bound in to replace the one that was cut out that we can see there.
Yes, this is the instance where there's actually two replaced.
Oh, right.
There's
The
one that's
two
been cut out and two
leaves.
added.
Yeah.
I recall when I was when Amy kindly let me join her in the collation, us noticing that it towards the end of the book, especially the second half of the Codex, it was really difficult to work out the different choirs and because of the mediation.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think to answer Claire's question, it does, I think that I think they're fully bound in, and I think they were probably bound in at the time when this binding was put. It seems like it was part of the whole thing. And I'm sure if you, like, I'm looking at the edges, because the leaves were gilded, so like painted with gold, I think at the time that this binding was done. And it looks like these leaves have gilding on them. Yeah. So it's part of that process.
Absolutely.
So there's a question from SC. How many people contributed written text to the book?
I mean, I am not very good at, like, I have friends who are very good at noticing just sort of different scribal hands. I also didn't focus on this in my project. Right. So I think that's a really great question, and I wish that I had the answer, or had actually even spent time looking. What do you think, Dot?
So according to the record, which is something I say a lot, according to the record, which you helped write, so it's you and Amy, it's a single hand wrote all of the 15th century text. So that's one hand. Yeah. And then I think there's at least one other.
Amy knows a lot more than me about this sort of thing.
Yeah. And if Amy would like to add something, Amy can add something, but otherwise, I think I say at least 2, maybe 3, if the person who added the text at the end is a different person. I agree. Yeah, but it is sort of hard to tell.
Yeah, and it's quite consistent. So, I mean, it's not obvious enough that I would notice.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
it's really pretty, even without the. Amy says it can be hard to tell when hands change within a formal script, right? Because the scribes are trained. I mean, part of it is that you're supposed to be writing the same way as everybody else. Like, that's part of the scribal training. So it is hard. Oh, let's look at that.
Yeah.
All right, we have a couple of minutes. Is there anything else that you want to be sure to show before we? You can just.
I feel like I unchronologically jumped to the most exciting parts at the beginning of this anyway. I think,
just looking at it is kind
unless
of nice.
Amy can think of anything, or...
No, it's such a neat, it's such a nice little size. Like, I love really thinking about somebody like it sort of like exactly fits in the palm of your hand. Like, it's very it's perfect for carrying around. SC has another question. Who do you think owned the original book when it was made? That's what I wanted to know when I was trying really hard to find the provenance. When I was emailing Sotheby's, it was really disappointing to me that the furthest I could get was the 90s. And even then, since the Sotheby's sale, they use a code name for the purchaser. Oh, right. And I was asking them if they had a record of who that was, and they said no, they didn't know who it was. So I feel like we don't even know who bought it from Sotheby's, and then who, it's actually a mystery that lives in my brain. Somebody with enough money to buy a book of ours, I think it's safe to say. Yes. And but probably not like royal, like not somebody with like huge amounts of money. So it was mostly women, at least with Italian books of ours. Yeah. All right. So there's a flurry of questions that I'm going to try to get them all. So answer them quickly. Were the margins recut when it was rebound? Possibly. I think so. It looks like some of them have been. Even here, for example, you can see it's a bit truncated. Yeah. Yeah. I think the edges were trimmed. Yeah. Because not all of them, but not a whole lot. Like some of I've seen manuscripts that are trimmed a lot more, but I think this one was trimmed. Can you open it to the first page? And then is there a title page? And there's not a title page. Title pages didn't really start being a thing until printed books. And they have the sort of half copied out Psalm 114. Yeah, so there's sort of an added thing, which again is something that's kind of typical that you see. And then this is the first page of the calendar. Which also is substantially more dirty than the other pages. Yes, which maybe means that there wasn't a cover for some time, or... I would imagine. It's just really a lot dirtier than even the back of the page. Yeah. One more question. Are the replacement leaves primarily at the beginning of a new section? Yes, absolutely. In fact,
they really seem to correlate to where the miniatures.
Right. So the miniature, originally there would have been miniatures, which are basically little illustrations, probably highly decorated with gold and a lot of color, that would have introduced each of the section, at least of the Hours of the Virgin and other parts of the manuscript.
Yeah.
And those are what were taken out.
Yeah.
And it's 12:31.
Okay.
Which means it's time to say goodbye. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Dot.
Julia. This
Thank
was
you, everybody,
great.
for the questions.
Yeah,
This has
thanks.
been a lot of fun.
It was great. So we'll be back next week, and then we're taking August off, but we'll be back then after that in September. Thanks, everybody, and I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you again soon.